So recently, I've had some people reach out to me and continually ask me, through a bunch of different reasons, problems in relationships, problems in connections with their partners, problems in family dynamics, problems in, day-to-day life. And these people have really asked me, mostly men, have really come to me and asked how to get rid of some of the residual signature, some of the residual syntax or interface from old partners, getting rid of those old traumas and kind of casting them away in a healthy manner and not dealing them in a way where, we're going to cover it with something and then later when that something that we cover it with degrades, then the problems come back up again. So we can play the game of masking behavior, of masking problems, but at the end of the day, most of the time we find ways to fix the problem just by making our solution under a different name and then the problem under a different name. And all the while, it's just the same thing. We're doing the same thing just with a different name. In short term, this might work. In long term, it really doesn't. So there's healthier ways with resetting your system, cleaning out all of that junk in there and trying to get rid of it as much as possible. And the most unpleasant, but the first step, is to clean. Just like anything. Just like building a house for the first time. Who owns the house? Establish who's allowed in and who's not allowed in. What's allowed in and what's not allowed in. Once you build that wall, you're making that conscious effort in saying, only things that follow my metric are allowed inside an area that it can affect me. So you build those walls first. And this isn't out of hate. This isn't out of spite. You're building those walls for security. Security to give yourself enough time to start building and to be able to turn your back, not worrying about who's going to stab you in the back once you do. So you start building those walls. The second is, what kind of structure do I want to build? How many doors does it have? Is it a one-way street? Is it a revolving door? What kind of life do I want to live? And how is my security system going to mirror that? Going to complement it or going to get hurt by it? So these are kind of conscious things that you have to take into consideration when you're trying to not only build something, but you're trying to refine past behaviors. A lot of young men, especially in my boat, really don't understand the consequences of miscalculating relationships with women, miscalculating short-term relationships with women, just overnight relationships with women, or overnight exchanges. These things can have big effects. In an era where men's mental health is really not talked about at all, these things kind of get pushed away. They're things you just have to deal with. Things you should expect when you're in this culture. The reality is, the culture in the United States is very different than it is in, say, Eastern Europe, Romania, Germany, Hungary, Slovakia. You have different women, you have different men, you have different expectations, and you have different roles. So I really encourage people not to give up hope on finding partners or cleaning out their kind of littered past just by one metric on the place that they maybe grew up and lived. I always suggest that people really get out there and experience cultures all around the world because everything has something to offer. And the second you take your mindset and you move it out of a nationalistic center of view and you really shift it by having one of those, out of country experiences, you can look back and say, okay, I like these aspects from this culture. I'm going to bring those back with me and I'm going to add those into my wall. I'm going to add those into my practice. And it's the same way with defining boundaries in relationships and working through past traumas in relationships. You're going out and you're getting experiences. You're not being stupid, but you're going out, taking the initiative, putting yourself out there, and really figuring out what's you, what fits you, what do you like? Because you don't have to like something just because your culture does it that way. You can choose. And the second you realize that is the second you're free to build those walls. The second you're free to heal behind them. And the second you're free to really assess who and what do you want to associate with, and do you want tied to your name, and especially tied to your, say, energy. Because when you tie those things and those people to your energy, they feed on it as much as you give it to them. And you feed them with it as much as you're with them. Do you want to feed this? Look at your partner. Is this somebody that you want to feed? Is this and are these character traits that you want to feed into, that you want to help grow? Or are these elements where you would like to say, no, I don't want to do this. No, I can't. I refuse to feed this because I'm making something and I'm nurturing something that is not going to help me. I'm nurturing an animal that's going to bite me the second it becomes strong enough to break its chain, because it believes its chain is the only thing that's holding it back. It doesn't know loyalty. Critically assess your partner's relationships, because this is really the foundational part, the foundational mistakes that people make when they really try to make the jump into a post-spiritual humanistic world that we live in. Gone really are the days of solidified religion. We're moving into a section and an era in humanity that demands an open mind with the constant just abundancy of information, abundancy of culture, abundancy of access. We're getting to a point where we have to really determine what unites us and what polarizes us, and whether or not we're making decisions based on our relationships, what's allowed in, what's allowed out, cultures, what's allowed in, what's allowed out. We have to keep an open mind and realize that these decisions, these small decisions, have really big effects. They reverberate, not only in our minds, not only in our partner's minds, but in the minds of everyone in the world. Because these steps are taken first by one person, and then made by another who follows suit and example, and then more and more and more and more and more. That is how movements are made. That's how work is done. That's how real awakenings happen. And this is no exception.